Oh my gosh. What? I think this is one of our biggest crowds for Lunchtime Lookin'. How many of you all been to a Lunchtime Lookin' before? Okay. And you still came back knowing that I was going to be here. I am so proud of you all. Well, it's good to see you all. We have lots of stuff to do today. I think that you're going to find out how you actually put on an incredible show like The Lion King. We have actors that are going to tell us behind-the-scenes stories. And then you see this little event over here. We're going to see how some of the magic actually happens. So I want to bring out these wonderful performers that are giving their time today to talk to us. First of all, we have our mask and puppet designer, Troisi. I asked his name 3 times. Welcome. And then we have the wonderful Timon, which is Mark Shunock.
Timon,
sorry. I'm thinking once on this island. And then we have the fabulous Scar, played by Timothy Carter. Welcome, sir. And your favorite Pumbaa, Ben Lipitz. Welcome. And the most beautiful person in the cast today, Miss Dan'yelle Williamson, playing Nala. Well, I have to tell you, I saw the show last night again, and I was sitting next to someone who was 5 years old and had never seen the show before. And how many around 5-year-olds do we have here today? A couple. Okay, yeah, and you guys? And I don't know about you all, but I can't get my nephew to sit in front of the TV watching a video for 30 minutes. But for a 2.5-hour show, just sitting there, attentive, watching, seeing everything that goes on, it was just amazing. I mean, I was more restless, I think, than he was. All of a sudden, 45 minutes, like, did I use the bathroom enough? But to watch a show like this that gets this kind of impression, how do you feel as actors and performers with this kind of energy? What does that do to you?
Well, for me, it just makes me feel good about what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm able to make an audience member feel a certain kind of way, I feel I'm doing my job. Okay. So it's rewarding in a way.
Is this unique to this show, or are there other shows that you feel like that? Wow, when you do that circle in the very beginning number, that I'm just watching the audience perspective.
It's difficult to hold a child's attention span for that long, but what we try to achieve with the design is we have the duality. We have the actors, we have the puppets, and you can come back and see the show numerous times and see different things. So I think all that combined really takes a child's attention, and because I brought my niece, I waited till she was 5 years old, and she said to me, "Why is that green man following Timon everywhere?" So, and then she'd go back to, just watching the puppet and watching the person. So I think it really holds their attention. It really keeps them quiet for most of the performance.
Okay.
I've never been in a show that has this effect on an audience. I remember when I joined the show almost 2 years ago. The resident director, who was the man who was sort of Julie Taymor's the director, her deputy, and the man who was training me, let me see the show once, but told me, I'd prefer that you not come back and see it while you're rehearsing, because I want your take on Scar as opposed to the fellow who was playing it at that time. But I used to sneak out just for the first 5 minutes, because it's a masterpiece of staging, for one thing. But really, what was special to me was the wave of warmth that would sweep over the audience in that first sequence, because I'd never experienced that kind of just palpable warmth, glow in the audience, and as I say, I've never been in a show that has this effect on an audience.
Ben?
What I think makes Lion King so unique is that not only does it hold a child's attention, it holds adults' attention, and that's a credit to the design and the way the show is put together, in that the duality of the puppets and the actors create a representation of life, and that energy that is created is what we're feeling back from the audience that is experiencing real life, real stories, real tension, real excitement, and creating that in one space creates a new synergy of energy, and that's something that I've never felt on any other show. And I mean, I'm not in Circle of Life, and I'm downstairs usually getting into costume and makeup during that point, and you can literally feel it vibrate through the building.
Mm-hmm. Mark, since we had talked about the duality of playing a character with a costume and being followed around by the green guy, can you tell us about the rehearsal process? I would assume from other shows that you've done, this might have been, was this your first time working with puppets in this way?
Yeah, this type of puppet, absolutely.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that rehearsal process?
I had a 4-week rehearsal process before I was thrown in front of an audience. And for me, the biggest thing was getting the script out of my hands, first of all, learning these lines so that my hands were free to be able to carry the puppet. You know, you can't really learn a puppet while you're holding a book in front of your face saying these lines. So for me, it was right away getting what we call off book, learning my words so that I had the freedom to just to play with this amazing puppet.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest challenge was just bringing it to life so that when you watch the show and you watch Timon and Pumbaa interact, yes, there is that dual event, but you actually see that puppet and you see that it's alive.
Yeah.
And if you're actually watching Timon sometimes and not really watching me, then that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't necessarily want you to look at my green face because it's painted green for a reason, and it's to blend in to the jungle. You know, so if you're watching that puppet and it's coming to life, then I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
So but it was an awesome process to figure out, and it's a daily process. I've been here with the show 14 months, and I'm still coming up with new stuff, new ways to make him move, new ways to make his hand, make him wipe his sweat off his brow, to sniff, to get out of Pumbaa's way. You know, you name it. Every night's different, and Ben and I are really great at keeping it fresh and coming up with new stuff.
And I just have to compliment you too. You're probably one of the more recognizable characters in the show. We've seen the movie, and you are so hysterically funny. Is comedy something that comes naturally to you? Is there a lot of credits? As I was looking at your credits, it didn't kind of seem like, oh, stand up here, this, that, and the other. And isn't he hysterically funny in this? I mean, just.
It's the words. I just bring the script to life.
But your own specific way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We all know the cartoon, and Nathan Lane did the voice of the cartoon, so I'm definitely not trying to be Nathan Lane, but he's a New York wisecracking, know-it-all meerkat.
Okay.
And I bring the Mark Shunock Canadian small kid version.
Hockey playing meerkat.
Yeah, hockey playing short Canadian wisecracking meerkat. So I'm spoiled.
Yeah.
I think, not to knock these guys, but I think it's the best part of the show. I absolutely love it. I'm honored to be able to sing Hakuna Matata every night. I can tell you it's a treat, and I've got one of the best professionals that I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
He's been with the Lion King a lot longer than I have, and being able to come into a show and have a veteran Pumbaa sitting there waiting for you to help guide you into the process has been remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Can we talk about that, Ben? How long you've been with the show and how your process? What brought you to the show?
An audition.
Okay. Can you tell us about your audition? I love these stories.
I had auditioned a couple of times over the years to be
in New York or here in DC?
In New York.
Okay.
I had pretty much stopped doing theater and was doing television exclusively. And when the opportunity presented itself, I actually said, again, okay, I'll go in, because I had never gotten cast. And it's like any actor, like anyone that wants anything, after you've been told no so many times, you start getting a little discouraged. I went in, and it just kind of worked out and lined up right. And I'm now in my 6th year on this tour. And while we're in DC, I will mark my 2000th performance of The Lion King.
Just to add on to that, the gentleman I replaced was the original Timon of this company. The tour is now in its 6th year.
Wow.
And he had been playing Timon since it started. And
big shoes.
Talking about coming in to fill some big shoes. That's just, it's as a performer, as an actor, we were talking about the show to start this, and as actors, you become a part of something incredibly special. And when you start, you're like, well, okay, well, I'm gonna do this for 6 months, or I'm gonna do this for a year. And then you realize how truly remarkable this piece is, and you end up staying for 6. I thought I'd do this for a year, and here I am into my second, and I'm sure this time next year I'll be into my third. You know, it's a blessing. I had to wait 5 years just to audition for the role because it wasn't available. He wasn't going anywhere. So when the audition came up, I just had to make sure I was ready. Yeah.
Now, how does the costume? Is it seem familiar to you now? Is it always how for 6 years?
Well, there's two parts. There's the costume and there's the puppet. My puppet is the heaviest single person puppet in the show. It weighs 42 pounds. And it's
42 pounds. Is anybody here 42 pounds? You're okay, so you're lifting that every night.
Every night.
Okay.
And it was funny. We had a rehearsal just not even 10 days ago with Julie Taymor, who came in to kind of help us clean up the show and really give everyone her take and notes on the show. And we were rehearsing without the puppets, and I could not remember a single line. I was clueless as to where we were, because for me it's become one performance that I can't just separate it out like pieces any longer, because it is so connected to me physically, mentally, and emotionally that unless I'm in the puppet and really doing the show, not that I'm locked in, on autopilot, but that duality is hard to separate. So.
Okay. Luce, can you talk a little bit about how you trained the actors in the process?
Just to elaborate on a little bit of what he was saying, what I usually do is I'll set up all the new companies. I've been with the show for 11 years now. And we'll go out, and to hand an actor a puppet is you get a certain amount of resistance. He's laughing, he knows. You get a certain amount of resistance. And then after about a 6-week period, you can't rip the thing away from them. They just don't want to give it up anymore. So it becomes the instrument that they use. But I'm sorry, what was the original question?
Working with helping people to learn the puppetry, since it is very complex here.
It is very complex, but what I try to do is we do a lot of mirror work, and I'll set the basics. I'll show them how the puppet works, the mechanics of it, and that, and then I try to set them free, because we constantly discover different things. He was just saying that even till today, he's noticing different things he can do with the puppet, and it's really a growth process. And we'd like the actor to bring in their own sort of personality, and some of the things that come out of their sessions in the mirrors are amazing. And again, being on the show 11 years, you go, how come I never thought of that? But it's truly an amazing process to watch.
Yeah. Tim, since you're a little less costumey, it's basically, I'm not costumey, but puppetry.
News to me.
Yeah, with puppetry, using the head, but not as much as a full body puppet in the way that these guys work. Was it a different process for you, or is it still just, you see what I'm saying? Because there's so much of the...
It's definitely a full-body puppet. Okay. I mean, you can kind of see over here the head mount, but also what's attached to it. I mean, I wear a great deal of machinery and battery packs on my thighs, which you don't see because they're ingeniously covered by the chaps. Right. The chaps have a very distinctive shape. And joggers, whatever.
Chaps are cool.
And it's I remember the fella who used to
show you the pack.
I'll demonstrate. So you
those
can explain
are on your
where
hips.
These go right now.
Yes, those I wear those on my thighs.
Wow. Okay.
And some of the wires you see there lead up to the head mount, and one of them leads down my arm into my hand, and I wear a control on my hand that the audience hopefully doesn't notice. And so while I'm acting, I'm controlling the mask.
Now, did you all know that before he talked about this? Yeah. This is what's so interesting about this.
It's funny. I guess I should.
He's moving.
I should be
never
flattered.
Get upstaged by puppets and kids.
I should be flattered when people say to me, "So the mask does that automatically, right?"
But you just think it's like a little flip that you go up and down, but you know that it can't.
What Julie Taymor had in mind with all of these puppets, she talked about a double event. She wanted the audience to the focus to go back and forth between the actor and the puppet, back and forth constantly. In my case, gosh, I don't know if maybe somebody else could.
Go ahead.
The whole point of the Bunraku puppets, which are the full body puppets like Timon and Pumbaa and Zazu, the masks. There are 5 different types of puppets in the show. And the reason Julie was so clear on having the actor visible was that it really reveals the humanity within the animal, or likewise the animal within the human. So there are so many ways to look at this as a double event. There's the actor and the puppet. There's the animal and the human. There's the technical and just the artistic. It creates so many levels of artistry that I can't imagine how it was created, and yet it was.
Yeah. Is there any times that the electronics have not worked for you, that the head has been up or down, and what do you do in that situation?
Frequently. I mean,
Frequently.
I
Scott, let
hesitate
me
to
tell
say
you
that
about
in
this.
front of Lewis. You know, he and the puppet department that we have, the people who actually travel with the show, are really excellent and very diligent about dealing with the technology. But it is like any kind of technology; it's prone to break down sometimes. And so, there are certainly times on stage when it will completely go haywire. And the only option is to keep going. Because there's nothing that I can do about it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry, Danyelle.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about your puppet work?
Actually, I've never been in a show, first of all, of this. Like, it's extravagant. I came from Wicked, which we don't have any puppets in that show. And I came from being green to putting this thing on my head. And I was like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with this.
Right.
So my
in all
rehearsal
your theater
process.
Courses, you never had
I never had to
mask
work
class.
with a mask or a puppet. So this was all brand new to me when I got here. And my rehearsal process was actually. I learned a lot. It was interesting. It was a little frustrating at times because I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to make this head come to life, because you have to, because there's no other way to do it. So I had a lot of mirror work where I was doing focus exercises, like what I have to keep in mind, where the mask is looking, not just myself, but the mask has to come alive. Like, where am I looking on an angle, diagonal, whatever. And so I was.
And just
there are certain moves. There's this the type of moves that we do in the show. It's derived from something called Balinese.
Balinese dance.
Am I saying that correctly? And
which is very specific.
It's very specific, and so I had a hard time trying to get that together, and then trying to get the focuses and. Moving like a cat, and I have 4 cats actually, so it was.
Now you want your old acting exercises.
Exactly. So it was.
Watch the cat, Uta Hagen.
It helped in the process because I was like, okay, this is how a cat moves, and then trying to put it into my body and into the mask and making that come alive. So.
And when you're saying mirror, you're watching the mirror.
I'm in front of a mirror.
And then you're also watching the headpiece and your head.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So I have to keep, whatever expression is going on here, I need to make that come across, collectively.
Exactly.
So.
And
it's still a process. I'm very new. I just got here in April.
Wow.
My first performance was actually in our last city in Tampa. So I've been here 2 months now.
Well, just gorgeous, right?
Two. So.
One of the. There's a lot of teary moments for me in the show, but when you do Shadowlands.
Shadowland.
Yeah.
We all call it
C.S.
Shadowland.
Lewis, exactly. Just absolutely gorgeous. I heard the song first.
Thank
you. It was one of those things where all of a sudden you're doing that. It was just so special, and what you brought to it was just absolutely gorgeous.
Thank
so
you.
For you being so new into it, I would have never known.
Thanks.
Yeah, it just brings a lot to it. Lewis, in the different ways that you worked with these people, do you have a group of people? Because the show is so huge. I can't imagine just 2 or 3 people or a choreographer, and some shows have their 2 assistants. How many people did you need to work with what was a rehearsal process like? It blows my mind for the stage manager just to, You're in this room, this room, this room, this room?
All right. No, there aren't many people.
Wow. Okay.
We have a lot of people out on the roads or at separate companies who take care of the stuff on a day-to-day basis. Training puppetry is a whole different thing. And obviously I can't be in all the places at all of the time. And last year we did South Africa and Paris. So I was out of town just on those 2 productions for 8 months, plus coming back and visiting, the running productions to clean up and that sort of thing. Yeah. But no, there really isn't any.
What was the reaction in South Africa?
It was amazing. Yeah. I mean, South Africa was amazing.
And is the cast from or? It
is. It's a fully South African cast. Sound was unbelievable. But what really struck me is because prior to this, 11 years ago, I had never been to Africa. I've never been on safari. It's amazing how close. Everything in the show is pretty much representational. But when you see all these elements in the environment, the actual environment, it's amazing how close they got it. It's just stunning. Because there we are out on the savannah and just watching the sunset, so the sun rises, and how the warthogs walk around, or how the lions, go into their prides together. It's all there. It's all there on the stage. It's exactly the way it is.
Yeah. I was in Kenya for the first time 2 years ago, and this is the first time I've seen the show after being there. And maybe that's what changed for me also. As soon as the show opens up and you see that, and even just, which I thought, I don't believe any of you guys were in the number, maybe the grass number, where they're just the simple grass headdresses, and they start moving very simply, and then all of a sudden it's more, and it was just like if you're out there and you just see the motion of that, and Julie just did all her homework. I mean, and I guess she lived in Bali for a while too, was it?
Yes, she did.
Kid.
I think she lived in Bali for more than a few years.
Yeah, because I think her parents were there. So you really realize when I'm telling, students and professionals who work with design of the research that comes in to do any show, you really see this because the specificity of every single thing that you guys talked about as your process, it really has to come from the top down.
Yep.
And you see that in the rehearsal.
You really do. I was really impressed to see.
Is part of the audition process, there's so many shows now that do puppetry, and thank goodness I've always been a big person ever since, kid growing up in Chicago with puppets, that you have Avenue Q, you have other shows on Broadway, Robert Blair does stuff. Did any of you come in with puppet experience beforehand? Is this part of the audition process? No, they're just looking for the best actors, singers, movers, and from that training, correct?
Yeah, we always, and Julie always insisted we would hire actors, singers, dancers, and then teach all the puppetry.
Wonderful, and that's probably why it's so specific then. Can we take a little time for you to go to the table and show us how some of this all works? And if we're going to start,
we gave away Scar's trick. This is how it works.
And Tim, do you want to go up with him just behind so you can kind of, if he's doing any of it right, is he going to still show you how?
Any of it right.
And this is Zazu. I would say in the production, the 2 most traditional puppets would be Zazu and Timon. We use a lot of masks, obviously. And he's a simple hand and rod puppet. Well, simple in the sense.
And what does that mean for the folks that aren't into puppetry, hand and rod?
Hand and rod puppets are basically what you see. They usually are manipulated with the hands, and they have some rods attached to them. As opposed to Timon, which is a Banruko puppet, which lives in front of the actor. It has Japanese descent in the town of Osaka, I believe. And what will happen is, we can explain how.
Sure.
And how heavy is that?
What we put you through every night.
Hey, it's not 42 pounds like my partner in crime over there. I wear what I call my man pajama. It's pajamas that you wore as a kid with built-in feet, that kind of. That's basically what I wear as a costume. It's green. Now, what it does is it masks a harness that I wear, and they're very thin. They look like hockey shoulder pads or football shoulder pads, but they're very thin. And what it does is it just sits over my chest, and there's a rod that comes out of my sternum right here, and it attaches to Timon right here with this little pin. So he's attached at my sternum, and I wear Chucks, little Converse shoes that are attached to his feet. So when I walk, he walks. And my costume then just Velcros over the shoes so you don't see it. On my right leg, I wear a horn. It looks like a garter that I Velcro around my leg, and it serves as a holding mechanism for his right hand. So when I'm not operating his right hand, it snaps into place on my right leg and just lives there like that. Because my right hand lives inside its head, inside his head. Now, I'll just take him off here a little bit. So my right hand goes in his mouth here, and I just talk. And then so my left hand always operates his left hand. My right hand is always in his mouth, and his right hand is on my leg. So when I walk, feet are attached, I can operate his mouth like this, say, Pumbaa, what are you doing? Get over here. He's a lion. He's going to eat us. And that's pretty much it. So this is my left hand. Yeah, my left hand.
Cookie hand, milk hand.
Yeah.
Cookie hand,
My
milk
left
hand
hand is always operating. And then there are very few moments in the show where I actually remove my hand from his head, pop this out of my right leg, and use both hands. But very rare, and the moments are few. Now, as you can see, when I took my hand out of his head, it drooped down. If you're close enough to sit to the stage, you'll see that I wear this headband crank mechanism underneath my wig. And there are two little little eye loops here that have strings that attach to his head. So when this is on my head, there are two strings on Timon's head that keep it up in place like this. So when I look right, I look left. Those are the few moments when my right hand isn't inside his mouth. But those are very rare. Most of the time, my right hand is always there and just sort of very specific where I'm looking. Like you over there in the second row with the blue shirt on. I see you. What are you eating? I want some. Get over here. You know. That's pretty much Timon in a nutshell.
That's great.
So, as you can see, they're not as simple as they look.
Nothing simple about it.
It's a great explanation.
Yeah. He'll be on his own tour Tuesdays and Thursdays.
That's right.
And anything you can tell us about?
Well, we did. This is called the material we use is carbon fiber. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but it's usually used for the body of race cars, airplanes, tennis rackets, golf clubs, anything that needs to be very strong and very lightweight. I believe Nala weighs somewhere around 4 ounces, maybe.
Wow.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
You're masked.
And
you're 6 ounces.
The reason we use this material is because we have to play 8 shows a week. And if you think you saw the show from out front, you should see it from backstage. Because it's the choreography backstage is just amazing.
How many dressers are on the show? And dressers are the people that are probably your best friends in the show, I would assume.
I think we have 14, are there?
14 dressers for the ensemble, because it's one for about every 3.
3 people.
And then the principals generally have their own dresser, or very rarely one dresser shares maybe 2 people.
Ben, can you tell what dressers do?
Dressers are IATA union, usually local workers at the theater. They are in the wardrobe department. Their responsibility is to preset, maintain, and set all of the costumes during the run of the show, get the show ready, and then kind of put everything away. For the ensemble, it's amazing because they have up to 13 different costume changes throughout the show. They change in a bunker that is directly upstage of the playing space, and the dressers are literally setting out the next costume for the actors while they're on stage. The actors come into the bunker, they take off the one costume, out of the shoes, out of the headdress, into the next costume, shoes, and headdress, and then they head to the makeup locals, who then help redo their makeup for their next scene, and then they go right on stage.
What amazed me when I got here was just the size and scale of everything. There are 52 of us in the cast, 30 some odd crew members, starting from company management all the way down to crew.
There's more than
I
more.
think there's like 200 people a night putting on The Lion King, and there's only 50 of us in the cast. So when I first got here, just the scale of everything. It takes 21 transport trucks to move our show. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, me
huge.
too.
And when he was talking about the choreography on stage is amazing, but the choreography backstage is incredible. You do not want to be out of place backstage. You're going to get run over by
Yeah,
a
you
rock.
will.
When I joined the show, I had never been scared being backstage before, and when I trailed the guy who was playing Scar when I joined, I was actually kind of frightened. I was
hit
afraid
by a rock.
something bad might happen.
There are 52 in the cast. There is a artistic staff of 3. We have a resident director, resident choreographer, and music director who travel with us. We travel with a body of 10 orchestra members and then hire an additional 7 in every city. On the crew, which includes sound, lighting, puppets, wardrobe, automation, hair and makeup, and our company management, which basically take care of the administrative duties of the show in moving city to city. We have another 65 staff members. And then that's in addition to all of the locals that get hired for the dressers, the lights, the hair and makeup. And as Mark said, it's close to 200 people who are putting the show on every night.
Tim, can you tell us about your process of what time you get to the theater, how step by step until you get on stage?
Well, it takes me an hour to get into makeup and costume. The makeup is very elaborate. I have a very talented makeup artist who does my makeup. So I come I'm required to be there at hour, which means an hour before curtain. I'm usually there a little bit before that. And I, sit in the chair for 45 minutes, and she does my makeup, and then it takes me usually roughly another 15 to get into the rest of it. Ben was talking about, the whole crew of people, and I wanted to mention that it takes 4 people to get me into the costume. I mean, aside from myself, there is my dresser who deals with the costume elements, the puppet person who, hooks me up with all the machinery, my makeup artist who deals with my wig. Over the head mount that you see here, I wear a wig and attaches that to the costume so it all looks like one piece. And who am I leaving out? Oh, the sound guy, because we're all mic'd. So a total of, if you count me, 5 people it takes to get me into the costume that you see. So,
Danyelle, what's your process?
I actually have all of Act 1. I'm not on until Act 2.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about that, isn't it?
I go into makeup at the top of Chowdown. And from Chowdown to about...
Oh, the song.
The song, Chowdown. Chowdown! From the top of Chowdown through, I'd say roughly the beginning, because Yoli's my makeup artist. Her name's Yolanda. I call her Yoli. She is usually finished by the beginning of Hakuna Matata.
Okay.
So I have time to, and I dress myself. Like I don't
read
need
magazines.
Any help. Yeah. So it takes about, I want to say 25 to 30 minutes to get me into costume, to makeups. I'm sorry. And she also puts my head on, and a wig also goes over the back of my headpiece as well. And so she has to pin that in, and then I go and get dressed, and I'm ready to go.
And your costume change, that's not a quick change, right?
I don't have any costume changes. I wear the same costume the whole time. Yeah.
Wow, I thought that
so
you had a
nice.
costume change.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, I
want
just that one the whole time.
Yeah. I know that we have a lot of questions from the audience, and I want to make sure that we have time for that. So I believe we have mic stands on house right and house left here. So if you do have a question, you can come up and line up against the microphones, and they will answer any questions that you might have about the production. And while people are starting to line up, we'll find out what a typical tour day is for you guys, since a lot of times the shows will be at the Kennedy Center and they're not touring around. What do you do on your downtime on a tour day?
We work, in a nutshell, we work nights, except for the weekends. Friday evening we do 1 performance, but then we turn around and do 2 performances on Saturday and 2 performances on Sunday. So a typical weekend that you guys have is the brunt of our work week for us. Our weekend doesn't start until Sunday at around 11, when we have Monday, which is our day off. But for me, Monday through Friday, obviously my days are free unless there are rehearsals and things called during the day. we're blessed to be in Washington, D.C. I've never been here before, so those of you who live here, you know there's a ton of things to do. So obviously I try to take in as much as I can to take part and feel like I live in the city. One thing, because we're here for 9 weeks, most of us choose not to stay in a hotel. The company provides housing options for us, but because we're here for such a long time, who wants to stay in a hotel for 2 months? So we rent apartments, condos, furnished housing, you name it, we got it. I'm up on, well, I'm not going to tell you. But my typical day
my
is,
number.
you know, I'm slowly learning how to downward dog at the yoga studio. I know all of us hit the gym at some point during the day, and then it's getting ready for what's coming. We had a really great resident director come in for a real brief moment because he was covering while another resident director came in, and he gave us such a great talk that he mentioned somebody's seeing the show for the first time and somebody's seeing the show for the last time. And people always ask, well, how do you do this night after night after night? And that right there, for me, sums it up. You know, there are a ton of kids coming to see The Lion King, and for them it's their first Broadway show. And I remember what it was like for me to see my first Broadway show. And for a lot of people, it's their last Broadway show. And so when you remember that, I have a little thing that I keep in my dressing room that just says first and last. And that's enough motivation right there. But I quickly wanted to touch on the preparation that goes into going in, because you asked these guys what they do to get ready. And they both mentioned their makeup artist. We have 3 wonderful women who travel with us full-time, Cheryl Thomas, Yolanda Pollack, and Jennifer Ivey. These are 3 women, and I got to tell you, it's like therapy. Because Ben and I go to makeup at places. When they call places and the show starts at 7:30, Ben and I walk into makeup and we sit there, and there's 3 of us. There's adult Simba, Pumbaa, and Timon in a chair with these 3 women in a room. It's like a barber shop. We're sitting there for a half an hour, and some days we don't say a single word. It's just dead silent, and they're painting us, and we're sitting there. Other days, we're in stitches on the floor telling jokes, and other days, there's drama. Somebody's got something going on in their life, and I got to tell you, that half an hour, for me, is one of the highlights of my day at work, because I get to spend it with 3 incredibly talented women and 2 of the best coworkers that I could possibly have. So for me, it's huge, and that really gets me ready to go to work. And if Ben and I we're like anybody else, we get into arguments or whatnot. If we're spatting, it's great. It's just really cool. Barbershop the movie backstage. It's Lion King right there. But those women are like our therapists. They're really, really great at what they do.
Yeah, they're awesome.
But they're even better at standing there painting at you, listening, going,
And thank you.
Close your eyes.
Thank you for mentioning their names, because there's so many times with people that are backstage that you can't do this without
great.
them.
Right,
No,
you can't.
And sometimes in your worst time that you're yelling and screaming, and it's the person that isn't even their job, and they're settling you down because they know you like family.
They work harder than anybody, just as much as everybody in the show. They're great.
Just to add before we get to the question, everything that you do in your day, we do in ours. I have a family. They used to travel with me full time, my wife and son. We're expecting a daughter in September. Thanks.
Virgo.
But everything that you do, we have to do. We have to go to the supermarket. We have to pay bills. We have to take care of our families. And the only major difference is that our focus, our prime energy, has to hit between 7 and 11. So our entire day is focused to be as ready as performers as we can at that time, so that the rest of the day our schedules are completely opposite anything you can imagine. And I know for everyone in the show, working out at the gym, staying healthy so that you can continue to do the show is pretty much the anchor in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. Why don't you tell us your name and your question?
I'm Kayla Blattman.
Can you get a little closer?
I'm Kayla Blattman, and my question is it hard learning all the African words in the play?
Good question.
It's not.
How do you learn them?
Okay, how do you learn it? You break it down, honey. Break it down. I don't say a whole lot of African phrases. I say giza booyabo, and when I first saw that on the page, I was like, what is that? And for me, what helps is to know what it means. If you know what it means, you're able to connect the meaning with the word, and it's easier to pronounce. So yes, it's difficult to an extent, but it's not impossible.
Good question. We'll come over here.
Hi, I'm Marcia Meekins, and I'm looking forward to seeing the show tonight. My question is, I'm sure the puppets get a lot of wear and tear. Do you have backup puppets? And if so, how many?
And I'm sorry, the second part?
How many?
Oh.
How many, yeah.
We have backup puppets on the principals, meaning we'll have two Timons, two Zazus. Everybody has their own Nala. Everybody has their own Scar. The rest of the show, you haven't seen it yet, have you?
No.
The rest of the show, there's one of everything. So if that goes down,
There's one Pumbaa.
there's one Pumbaa. There's only one, because he's so big, we can't fit more than one in the theater, quite honestly. Which is why he is not here today, or he couldn't fit him through the door. But we have a crew of 3 people who run the show with us, and backstage, it's like an emergency room. If something should happen, we have a call. Stage management will call us on our radio. We run into the ring in the dark with flashlights in the mouth. Just fix it and right back out on stage. You would never
Scars
even know
down,
what happened.
stab.
It's like a pit stop in NASCAR.
Yeah,
Exactly
It
what
really
totally
is.
is.
You're standing in the dark backstage,
And people
and
are
then
just-
all of a sudden, guys swarm at you with doctor's lights clamped to their heads, wrenches, duct tape, you name it. What do we got? And get out!
Lion King.
Quick,
CSI.
real quick.
Yeah.
These guys are on it.
Thank you.
Young lady.
Hi, my name's Angelina Opusa, and I wanted to know, do you guys have any advice for younger actors in the industry on what they shouldn't do, and how to prepare for an audition?
Oh,
That's a
sure.
really
That's a
good
great
question.
question. Yeah, you know what? And this is going to sound like a cliche. Stay in school, learn as much as you can, and do your homework. And I mean that as an actor. If you're pursuing acting, singing, dancing, puppets, whatever art form you want, know what you do best, know what you do worst, and then work on that so that you're doing your homework, so that when you walk into a room, you have brought everything you possibly can to the table. And then it's just a question of, objectives, things that are beyond your control. And when that happens, it's not about you.
How old are you?
Pardon?
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 14,
And what grade are you in?
9th.
Where do you go to school?
I'm going to Elizabeth Seton this year.
Then you're going to a good school. Great. And over here.
Yes, my name's Shauna Henry. My question was, what's the most complicated puppet animal?
The most complicated puppet. Mechanically or to manipulate?
Both.
Okay. I'd say the most complicated mechanically would be Scar. He's got 2 servos that live in his head, and I wish we could put it on him because the wires is just this massive tangle of wires.
Kind of like Iron Man.
Sort of like Iron Man. Sort of like Iron Man. I'd say the most complicated puppet is a toss-up between Zazu and Timon.
Thank you.
And over here.
My question kind of piggybacks on one that was just a couple of times ago. But I know you said stay in school. And, of course, besides the importance of getting a college degree, which is very important, that I want my 12-year-old son to know, he dreams about being where you guys are someday. And what kind of encouragement or what kind of words of wisdom could you share with kids sitting out here today who want to be where you are, besides college?
I'd say do as much theater as you can, every opportunity. On a practical level, the young lady asked about auditioning. Preparation. Go in hugely prepared, with ownership of the part. When I auditioned for this, I'll segue into a little story. My background is Shakespeare and classical theater. I have never done musical theater before, and I never thought of doing it. There's one of the producers in Disney theatricals is a fellow named Todd Lacey, who I went to college with in Kentucky, and I've known Todd for 20 years now. And about 4 years ago, Todd offered me an audition for this part, and I turned him down. I said, there's no way I could book that. I couldn't possibly book a part in musical theater, the competition is just too great. If you're pursuing acting in New York, you know the level you have to be at in order to book work, and I never dreamed I could do it. And so he said, well, think about it. A couple years after that, my agent got me this audition, and I didn't want to go. And he said, just try. So I called my audition coach to ask him to help me prepare. He didn't have time to see me, but he said, buy the CD, listen to it over and over again, drill the stuff, know it backwards and forwards. And so that's what I did. And I walked in hoping that it would go well, my first musical theater audition, and I booked the job in a single audition. And so that was instructive in that obviously my agent knew better than I did what I was capable of based on what he'd seen me do. But it was also, I guess, a credit to my preparation. I went in knowing that I had to be absolutely solid and know the material and go in with really strong choices. So that's a very long-winded answer. But
Thank you.
Thank you. And over here?
My name is Rachel Isakowitz, and I have actually two questions. One, what is it like to work with Julie Taymor? And, of course, I know this is a cliche question, though, but what is the coolest part about being in the show?
I've had the good fortune to work with her twice directly on the show. She came in, she's come to this tour now twice. She is remarkably inspiring. When you're sitting in a room, when you start thinking about you're sitting in the room with the person who had the vision and scope to create this entire world based on, the cartoon, which is, wonderful, and it's a great Disney animated film, but what she has done to it is singular and unique, and then suddenly you're realizing, I have no business being in the room with her. What do you want me to do? And it's exciting to work on that level and to know that you're a part of that. She's remarkably, she has a great sense of theater and her artistry and her vision. And it's a blessing to work with her, with everyone in the show like that. And what was the second part?
What is the coolest part about being in the show?
Somebody else. Every night's cool.
Yeah, just
Hakuna
recreating
Matata.
something every night.
There you go. Thank you.
I was incredibly, my name's Jessie Burr, and I was incredibly impressed by the dancing that's involved in the show. Do you know what inspired that, and how do you get prepared to do that kind of performance?
What inspired, from my understanding and knowledge of the show that I have so far, the dances in the show are derived from the African tribes. I don't know what tribe, but those movements are African. They're African dances, and their movements are very specific. How you would prepare for something like that, you would just have to have a sense of movement in general. I don't think you have to be a fierce dancer. Some of the parts in the show you do have to be like a dancer, but there are people in the show who aren't dancers. They're what they call singer dancers, who sing. They're singers who dance or move well. And you just have to have a sense of rhythm and balance and movement. So
there are two ensembles in our show. There's a singing ensemble and a dance ensemble. Mm-hmm. Garth Fagan, who is the choreographer of this show, his style of dance is very athletic and very muscular. And I know that he really created an articulated language of movement that really represents the animals and the tension in the bodies. I know for our dance ensemble, it's a remarkably hard show because they're constantly combating injury and staying in, top physical form as dancers because the demands are so enormous on their bodies. And in that regard, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine ever.
The dancers in our show are professional dancers.
Yeah.
They come from professional dance companies such as Alvin Ailey, the American Ballet Theatre. You name it, they're trained there.
Yeah.
Alvin Ailey, primarily an amazing African American dance company they're just phenomenal athletes. They're amazing to watch, as you've seen.
Do you guys also have flying in the show? Is it the dancers that do the flying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another whole element.
It just goes back to all the questions about preparation. And, if this is what you want to do, then you want to have a backpack on your back, and you want to have all those tricks in there. And that's just you just need to bring your stuff. You need to do it. And you need to just tell yourself that this is what you want. It's like any other job. It's like being a lawyer, a doctor, a fireman. You have to have a passion for what you do. But the difference about this gig is you have to be able to commit with a 100%, 110% willingness to do it, because you're going to be told no 98% of the time, maybe 99% of the time. You're going to be like, no, sorry, and it has nothing to do with you. So you have to stay positive, and you have to remind yourself that this is what I do, this is what I bring to the table. And when your part comes up, such as Timon for me, you have to walk into that room knowing that it's your part. I knew I got this gig before I auditioned for it, because it was my time and I was ready. And there was nothing that was going to say no to me. There was nobody who was going to say no, because I knew the role. I knew what they wanted. This show wasn't new. I had the opportunity to steal and go watch it 12 different times before I got there. I listened to the CD. But you have to have the passion to do it. Regardless of what you do, you have to have the passion to do it. You have to remind yourself that this is what I am and this is what I do. That, to me, is more important than anything else.
Thank
Can
you.
I just add real quickly on that point, and on how to, what do you want to do if performance is something you want to do for a career? This show especially answers a question that I've always asked myself as an artist is, how does theater convey life, and what can we as artists bring to that? Theater, I believe in theater with a capital T, and by that I mean something that is transformative and powerful, that answers that passion that you have inside as an artist, that allows you to really explore and communicate amazing ideas, so that, at some point, this show is playing in, there's 7 productions?
Right now.
7 productions worldwide. It transcends cultural barriers, language barriers, that there is a universal language in a piece of performance and a piece of theater like this that everyone can identify with. And as an artist, that's a bigger problem than, oh my God, am I going to get that job? And if I get that job, that means I can then go to LA, or I can do this. And when you start answering those kinds of questions as artists and people, you have the opportunity to create something truly, truly unique and special.
Great. Thank you. Young lady over here.
Hi, my name is Alex Demmons, and my question is it hard to produce the voices of your characters?
Or maybe how do you produce the voices?
Yeah.
Yeah, since you all have individual voices. Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, Nathan Lane did the voice of Timon in the cartoon. I definitely came into this not wanting to be Nathan Lane. Each character has a description that they release with what they're looking for, a scope of what they want. And he's a New York wise guy, so I do my homework and I try to pick up a New York accent and bring you what I want to bring. And if it sounds like it's supposed to sound, then But no, I didn't have a hard time with it. I have fun with it. It's challenging, but now it comes second nature.
And Tim, you talked earlier about that when you were rehearsing, they said they wanted you to bring your own person to the character. How was
I saw the movie before, as preparation, before I auditioned one time. Mm-hmm. And yet,
you have a naturally low voice.
In the 2 years I've been playing it, people are constantly saying you sound just like the movie, which they mean as praise. And so thank you. But it really has more to do the vocal choices I make in the show, which are I'm sort of placing it a little kind of in between British and American, not quite British.
You used to call that intercontinental.
Something like that, quasi-British. Has to do with how Julie Taymor kind of conceptualized this character. Mm-hmm. Some of her early sketches for this character were reminiscent of an English gentleman, almost a fop, with a cane and very upright and elevated and status and
with the classical work that you've done, that so makes sense. It's School for Scandal or
Yes.
the other
Right.
comedies.
So that element of the dandy, the English dandy, is inside there, inside Scar, someplace, and so that's reflected in the way I speak.
Okay. Good question. Young lady.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Burr, and my first question is, do you have any understudies or if you're sick of that?
We have lots of people who are going to take your one question. They're going to talk about understudies. Okay. How does the understudy system work?
We have.
Is it domino? Or?
No. We have specifically for the principals and for Ben and I specifically and Zazu. We have two gentlemen who travel with the show who only perform when either Timon, Pumbaa, or Zazu call out sick
or Scar.
They're called swings, and they're hired specifically to be ready all the time for any one of these parts. Now, one gentleman specifically, Jared, covers Timon, Zazu, and Pumbaa. It's his job to know those three parts and be ready if one of the three of us decides not to come to work. The other gentleman covers Pumbaa and Scar, and his job is to be ready if one of these guys can't.
Do they also do vacation?
I'm sorry?
Do they also do vacation?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
if I take a week off work to go home to see the folks or whatever, they'll cover. And they're hired specifically to do that.
From within the ensemble, all of the other principal roles and all the other principal roles are covered within the ensemble. You have Simba, Nala, you have the hyenas, and I think that and Rafiki.
Rafiki, yeah.
Of course. Then within the company we have swing performers in the ensemble whose job there are. I think we have four.
Two singers, two dancers.
Two singers, two dancers. There are 4 performers whose job is to step into any one of the 30 ensemble roles in the show. So these 4 people not only know
every track.
They know every single dancer track, whether it's they enter from this wing, this wing, this wing, and they move in this direction, move here at this point. Like a jigsaw puzzle, they know which track they're on and where they go. And those 4 performers, I think, are probably the most amazing.
Hardest. I think they have the hardest job.
Toughest job.
Because they have to know
They have to know 33 parts. 40 parts.
They know 40. They know basically 40 roles.
And the way it works is you get a call at 6 o'clock that night saying, "Hey, you're going on tonight. Mark's sick."
And sometimes in the middle of the show, someone goes out sick or injured, and those dancer singer swings step in the middle of performance.
You know, we're almost out of time, so we have one more question over here. But thank you, everyone, for...
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name's Sophia.
A little closer?
I have 2 questions. Timon, what was your favorite line?
What was my favorite line?
Favorite line.
Ooh. What's your favorite Timon line?
I really don't know.
You don't know? I think my favorite Timon line would be, I don't know. Pumbaa, are you nuts? You're talking about a lion. Lions eat guys like us.
Thank you for your question. I can't believe we're out of time already. This has just been one of the most stimulating discussions, finding out all the backstage magic. You've just been one of the most wonderful ensembles to talk to. The love, the joy, the artistry that you bring to us and to this project every night, it beams out to everyone. And Louis, to have the person that helped create and show us how this backstage magic just works, it's just mind-blowing.
I know I can speak for everybody here, and we've said this before when we've done events like this, is that we absolutely love what we do, no question about it, but we couldn't do it if it wasn't for you guys. And I know that sounds really sappy and cheesy, but it's the truth. You guys come to the theater every night, you pay a lot of money to see the show, and it just means the world to us that to have this opportunity, we're just as grateful for it as you are. So thank you very much from all of us.
Yeah, thank you. And remember, if you haven't seen the show, you can still get tickets if you beg, borrow, or steal or know somebody. And want to thank our guests. We're going to let them go out, and I'll be here just for a quick second. And thank you once again. Lion King.
Thank you.